According to the UK's ambassador to the United Nations, the status quo on the Temple Mount, which means Muslims only can pray, equals freedom of religion. Right. Okay. This is the Israel Guys.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of fake news, you should connect to the true and authentic stories of Israel. Guys, go ahead and subscribe right now. You don't want to miss this. Every week, we're bringing you cutting-edge material straight from the heartland of Israel. And also, don't forget our daily content. The Israel Guys Daily also is pumping out just quick little briefs of what's going on in Israel. Don't miss it. Guys, there is tensions. I really hate to focus on the tensions. I really do. And but it's Ramadan in Israel, and there are things happening. It's almost over. But even myself, Luke, I experienced something this week where I'm driving down the road, and a Arab boy, you know, they just look bored out of their mind, honestly. I mean, a lot of people could hype it up, and it is a belief. It's part of the belief of celebrating Ramadan. Is
throwing a rock through somebody's window?
Yeah, is like the way to celebrate is to do something very aggressive and harmful to somebody else that's not a part of your clan or your tribe. Well, I made the mistake of driving through an Arab village. I probably, you know, technically I should be able to drive through an Arab village. Like, you know, most towns in America have, welcome to, you know, I grew up in Franklin. Welcome to Franklin. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, skinny, fat, doesn't matter. You're welcomed to go to Franklin. And it really doesn't matter who you are in the whole world, but not really so in the Arab villages in Judea and Samaria.
Well, more certain Arab villages than others, too.
Correct. To be fair, yeah.
To be fair, like, you probably knew that you shouldn't have been there, right?
I did know I
shouldn't
have been
we'll just
there.
make you a promise that if y'all come on one of our trips, we won't take you there.
Yeah, it's
like Josh knew what he was getting into, but not to say that it was his fault. Basically, he got a rock through his back window. Not a good situation, because if a rock comes through your front window or a side window, it's a potentially very dangerous situation.
But listen, these Arabs, I'm not giving them any excuses. There's really no excuse. It's like being in Chicago. Okay, I get it. There's sides, and I would relate this situation here very similarly. There's places in Chicago you do not want to go, and if you go down that wrong road, you're going to pay for it. Well, it's identical here, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. There is areas that are intense, but it's the land of Israel. Why is there a tense location here in the land of Israel that I should not drive down? That to me is just it's hurtful and harmful for the nation of Israel, because it doesn't represent the Jewish nation of Israel. There is an enemy of the Jews that's resting in the land of the Jewish people that is very aggressive and very hostile to not only Jews, but to those who also love the Jewish people. And that's me driving through the Arab village, and they look at me, and it only takes them about 2.5 seconds to make up their mind if I should be punished for being in their village or not. And thank God, you know, that's all it was. But I could tell you, there is a strong hatred in those. Whew, you talk about, you just look at those people, and they look at me. Oh, it's like, boy, we want to kill you. Literally, that was the impression when I'm like, whoa, I really made a bad decision. This was not the village.
He was trying to get out of rush hour traffic, so
that was my reason.
Point made that, we probably won't do that
Shortcuts are not
anymore.
always short, you know. You take the shortcut and you try to get around some traffic and end up in villages that are not really that great to be in. So that's what it is. But I'm saying, obviously, guys, we celebrate things. I've said this over and over again. Guys, there's a problem celebrating Ramadan, and the celebration causes you to attack other people. There's something wrong with this.
I think it's because they're not drinking or eating anything. It makes you grumpy. I mean,
well, usually drinking is the problem, but in this case, maybe it's
no, they're not eating or drinking anything. Like so no water, no food for all of the daylight hours. So it makes them very grumpy.
Okay, guys, according to the Jerusalem Post, we should say this real quick. The Ramadan brought on a 200% increase in terrorist attacks in Israel between 2005 and 2016. This was a study that was done that's showing, you know, back in the day, Ramadan was not maybe it was actually celebrated in maybe a good way. I don't know. I don't know much about it, but maybe it wasn't like this. Obviously, 2005 to 2016, it was a notable 200% increase in attacks towards Israel. So now this time is like, it's been branded now that this is the time that we actually attack the Jews. Very problematic, and you're never going to hear that anywhere else. You're just not going to hear about this kind of stuff. But this is literally what this celebration is, a celebration that's begun to be a time where you attack Jewish people. Right. Very unfortunate, but that's what it really is.
Yeah, so, I mean, Josh got a rock through his window. There's a lot of other unrest that's been happening over the last 2 months, even before Ramadan, leading up to Ramadan. But what you guys have probably heard the most about is the violence and the riots happening in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. We've been on the Temple Mount a lot in the last couple weeks. Josh has been there filming because he's like a movie star. They're filming. I guess we can talk about it, actually. The sequel to the award-winning film I Am Israel is in production right now, and Josh is one of the stars. So, guys, get ready. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it is absolutely epic, taking it to the next level, and it's all about the house of prayer for all nations. But anyways, violence on the Temple Mount. You've probably heard that. I saw one headline that said 1,100 settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Guys, not one single settler stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Did the Israeli police go in to break up the riots? Did the IDF go in to arrest the rioters and restore calm so that 80,000 Muslims could actually pray there later that same day? Yes, that happened. Not one single settler stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
And Luke, you gotta know, who did they arrest as well? They
bad guys.
They arrested the bad guys. Yeah, the guys.
That's typically how the police work. They arrest the bad guys, so that good guys can do what, peacefully go about.
Well,
their
let's
business.
just not call them good guys. That's not necessarily that far, Luke. But let's say the worst guys. They got the worst guys because the whole thing it's pretty bad. I mean, we're talking about the Islamic takeover on the Temple Mount. I'm not going to call any of those guys like good. And we'll get into that in just a minute. You guys got to wait for the history. This is ridiculous. The history build up to this.
But first, we got to talk about the UN because a lot of hypocrisy going on there. So Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, was at the pretty regular meeting at the UN Security Council this week. They have like a regular quarterly meeting just to like an open debate to talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But they have already and I think they have some kind of monthly meeting as well. They'd already had a special session to talk about the violence in Jerusalem last week. So they had another meeting today. So Gilad Erdan has all the video footage that proves that the riots and the violence was started by radical Islamic jihadists on the Temple Mount, comes into the Security Council, and guess what? They said, we don't want to see it.
You don't have to guess.
They said, we do not want to see it. They would not let him play the video footage. He was forced to just play it to the media. And what he said to the media is, quote, all the events on the Temple Mount have been captured on camera. Photos and video footage showing exactly who is to blame for the chaos and violence are accessible to all. Yet when I requested to show this footage to the members of the council at the debate, I was sadly denied. If I can't share the footage with the council, I'll share a short video with you all here, as I'm sure that you will all spread the truth on your platforms.
Luke, I would say,
are you surprised? I mean, are we surprised?
No, I'm not surprised at all. It's a ridiculous council anyway. And what? They're gathering every month, right, to discuss Israel and talk about what's going on here as though this is the biggest problem in the world.
But you would think the UN is the motto of the UN is bringing peace to the world. So you would think they would be interested in finding out the truth behind violence so that they can find a solution to finding peace.
Right.
But no, instead they're just like, don't want to see it, don't want to see any evidence. We don't want to know.
Because
ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Because they're actually a propaganda machine that has already written its lines. That's what you got to know. That entity is a propaganda machine. It's already has its whole plan laid out, and it's anti-Israel, and it's very obvious. We've talked about this 100 million times on the show. It's very obvious, and you shouldn't really go that far to research to find that they really are just anti-Semitic haters of Jews and haters of the state of Israel as well. Luke,
I heard there was a silver lining.
Yes, there was, and this is what I love.
I was a little shocked.
Is when there can be something good to be pulled out. I really do love to pull out the good. And there was this one guy, and I believe he's actually part of the council. Tor was his name, and Tor, we just want to say thank you to you for making the decision that you did. And he actually recognized that Gilad Erdan was correct and that the Temple Mount riots were actually caused not by Jews, but by the radical Islamic Hamas members that started the riots. And it was Hamas. I mean, literally up there, they're waving Hamas flags. And I'm sure this was Gilad Erdan's videos that he was showing. This wasn't just some kind of like little, party going on up there and then the Jews came up. No, they're literally, these are Hamas terrorist members that are waving their their Hamas flags as they're creating this havoc and throwing rocks at everybody and tearing up their own mosque. This was the videos, guarantee you, that he was showing. And there was one guy, Tor, that believed it and actually posted that he believes that Israel was not responsible for it. So thank you.
Josh, let's talk about status quo, because Britain's ambassador to the UN, to the United Nations, Barbara Woodward, said at this meeting, quote, that the UK, quote, remains firmly of the belief that maintaining the historic status quo is the only means of ensuring freedom of worship. Now, just think about that for a second, okay? Maintaining the historic status quo, which traditionally has been believed to be that Muslims should have the right to pray on the Temple Mount, everybody else should not. That basically, Muslims only, equals freedom of worship. Okay, it's an oxymoron. Seriously, I'm sorry, UK, but you got it wrong on this one. But let's talk about status quo for a little bit. In 1967, when Israel liberated the Temple Mount, yes, they handed the keys back to the Jordanian Waqf and gave them control of the Temple Mount. But things have changed. The status quo the line has moved over the years. Today, or in 1967, there was one mosque on the Temple Mount. Today, there's 5 mosques. Jews used to be able to enter through 3 of the, I think, 10 gates. Today, you're non-Muslims, not only just Jews, but any non-Muslims are only allowed to enter through 1 gate and only in very restricted times and days. And right now, you can't enter at all because Prime Minister Bennett closed it to all but Muslims. And the other thing is that regarding status quo, so you see that shifted where the Muslims have slowly taken over more and more on the Temple Mount and slowly restricted Jewish movement and non-Muslim movement more and more. But Israel has gradually allowed more freedom of worship. Kind of comes and goes, but we, even in our experience of going up on the Temple Mount, we've experienced more freedom to be able to walk around, pray quietly. And a leading judge in Israel, even ruled last year that quiet prayer on the Temple Mount was allowed and it was legal. But I want to read part of Israel's basic law because it's regarding holy places, holy sites. It says, quote, "The holy places shall be protected from desecration and any other violation and from anything likely to violate the freedom of access of the members of the different religions to the places sacred to them or their feelings towards those places." In Israel's basic law, it's basically saying that it is illegal to discriminate against people of other faiths if they have holy sites up there. And the Temple Mount is a holy site to the Jewish people. It's also a holy site to Christianity. And yes, it's a holy site to Muslims, although it's like the 3rd holiest site, and they even point their backsides to it when they pray. So I have a hard time believing like the reason as to why they claim that it is so important to them when it's obviously not the most important. It is the most important site for Judaism. We could probably argue that it should be the most important site for Christianity. That's a growing understanding, but it is the most important site for Judaism. Israel's basic law, they're violating their own laws by not allowing Jewish prayer and free access to the Temple Mount.
Luke, I want to get into why that is and why the Muslims are so radical. And it's a recent thing that Muslims have been radical about the Temple Mount itself. And it's probably the grandest, biggest lie of the recents with Muslim theology and what's going on. Well, there was this guy, Hajj Al-Min Husseini. Mm-hmm. He was the guy who basically was the founder of you want to talk about a so-called Palestinian
fabricator.
Well, yeah, but even the crisis of like Jewish-Palestinian, Israeli-Palestinian crisis. He was basically the founder of that. He was a friend of Adolf Hitler,
yeah.
And he had the same ideas to totally destroy and annihilate the Jewish people from the entire earth. So this was the guy that founded the whole propaganda and all this anti-Israel stuff. Well, let me tell you something. He did not have the bright idea of claiming the Jewish holy site as of 1924. He was the
president of the Supreme Muslim Council.
Yeah, the Muslim Council, 1922 to 1937. So he came up with under his guidance, they came up with a tour guide book. So the guidebook for the Temple Mount for anybody who was to come, because back then they didn't have yet.
You have one of these books. We'll have them put it up on the screen. We have a physical copy of this book, and we also got the link right down below.
Right.
You can check You have to believe this. This is not made up. This is actually documented.
This is legit stuff. So,
and it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah. So Hajj Amin al-Husseini. You got to check this out. This is, I'm going to quote from the guidebook of 1924.
The Al-Haram al-Sharif.
Thank you. That's right. I never say that right. I always look to Trump to say it right. Yeah. Trump had it down. He could say that. I remember he'd always say all three, he'd say every name for everything. Here it is. Let's get the quote. The site is one of the oldest in the world. Remember, this is directly quoting from 1924. I want to make that very clear. Let's continue. Its sanctity dates from the earliest times. Its identity with the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute. Do you hear that? It's beyond dispute. Continue. This, too, is the spot, according to universal belief, on which David built there an altar unto the Lord. They're like quoting Bible here. This is crazy. Continue. And offered burnt offerings and peace offerings.
This is in the Muslim Jewish
court.
Writing. This is not Christian writing. This is not something from the scriptures, from the Bible. This is from published by the Supreme Muslim Council in 1924, the guidebook to visit the Temple Mount. So
here's what happened, guys. That was shifted because then with Hajj Amin al-Husseini's theology, as it morphed and came into more structure and more anti-Israel and more hatred, because guess what? Some big things happened after the 1920s that really affected that Muslim takeover ideology. One, they lost control of the Temple Mount to the Jewish people in 1948. But then there's this, if there was a predecessor, or sorry, a successor to Hajj Amin al-Husseini, it was to Hajj. Let's just call him Hajj here.
Hajj.
Yeah. It was Yasser Arafat. And I don't know if you guys know that, but that's 100%. And Yasser Arafat, I'll just paraphrase. He says, when he quoted this, he said 34 years the Jews have been digging tunnels under the Temple Mount. And he says, can I just say something before we get to this quote? There's most people in the world, if you're a religious person and you believe in a God or you believe in a higher power or whatever you are, there's this thing that most of us agree on, and that lying is bad.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us can agree.
Yasser Arafat.
No, but it's
like a lot of other Muslims.
So it's lying is bad unless it benefits you. Now, if I could get a definition for lying, I don't know. If lying was okay if it benefited you, I'm pretty sure you could just say lying was okay. Whoever lies when it doesn't benefit you? And do you ever think about that? I don't think anybody would ever lie if it didn't benefit you. So,
what are you saying? This shouldn't benefit Yasser?
Yeah. Well, if he has to, if he's going along with this theology of at least my theology, if it's okay to lie, this is actually, he says the Jews are going under, digging out, and let's finish this thing under his okay to lie. He goes in and says they haven't found anything.
Well, he says they've not found a single stone proving that the Temple of Solomon was there.
Specifically the Temple of Solomon.
Because historically the temple was not in Palestine.
Yeah. And maybe they found remnants of a shrine of
Yasser, you should have talked to your predecessor who published the guide that said that there's indisputable evidence of Solomon's temple.
And let's continue, because then we have
but wait,
following we have Mahmoud Abbas. He's the guy that takes over after Yasser Arafat. We have three guys, and right now
Hajj, Yasser, and then Mahmoud. And Mahmoud's still in power today.
Yes.
He's 80-something years old, but
Let's
he's
get
still
this.
in power.
Anyone who wants to forget the past, the Israelites, right, cannot come and claim that the Jewish temple is situated beneath Haram. He just said everything against it again. Right? So what changed? What changed?
Well, he said they claim that 2,000 years ago they had a temple. I challenge the assertion that this is so, that there's ever been a Jewish temple. But even if it is so, we do not accept it because it is not logical for someone who wants a practical peace.
Nabil,
he's saying the truth is not practical.
Yeah, it's not the truth. Yeah,
sorry.
Nabil Sha'ath, senior advisor to Mahmoud Abbas. This quote: Israel demands control of the Temple Mount based on its claim that its fictitious temple stood there. So now I just want to kind of fill in.
Hold on, we got one more.
Oh, you got one more. Okay.
We got Walid, because so far we've got Hajj, Yasser, Mahmoud, Nabil. Now we got Walid, who's a foreign press spokesman for the Fatah Central Media Commission and formerly director. That's good. He worked for the.
The reason why I love this one, Luke, is because he's actually the information guy.
Right.
He's in charge of the information.
Foreign publications for the PLO's Ministry of Information.
Yeah.
There's no fancy title. Yeah. Waleed. He said there is no tangible evidence of Jewish existence from the so-called Temple Mount era. The location of the Temple Mount is in question. It might be in Jericho or somewhere else. Never heard that one. A lot of people think it's in the city of David, which is also dumb.
No, but they just, I'm telling you.
Never heard it was in Jericho.
Luke, they made it up on the spot. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, they changed the tune of what they were singing.
Can we go back to the original story? So for up until 1924, we can count that because
wasn't that in publication till 1953?
50s. Yep.
So until the 1950s, after Israel was already a state.
This was it. This was the Supreme Muslim Council's approach to the Temple Mount. It literally says the Temple Mount, Solomon's temple stood there beyond dispute. So what happened? Beyond dispute. This should have been solid. And then we just laid out the history. So this is the progression. And the reason why I wanted to go to this historic accounts with you guys is just to really show you that the big lie, things can change so quickly, and the Islamic ideology, it's okay to just totally rewrite the pages of history. And that's what I want you to get. It's totally okay to rewrite history, and I'm telling you, this is our biggest battle of our day right now, and we've got to, as people of God and the people, people that are ready to stand for truth, we can't rewrite the story. The story is not, that's not true. It's not true to rewrite the literal history books being rewritten and canceled. Cannot cancel this history. It's solid. It's there. Even the Muslims agreed with it until it didn't fit their ideology. And that's what I want you to know about the Temple Mount. Solomon's temple stood there beyond dispute. Even though they will reject it today, just yesterday they were saying it was. Now they're changing their tune.
And obviously we know, right? We know why they're changing their tune. It's because of their hatred. It's because they want to take over the entire land from the river to the sea. They want to see the Jews wiped off the face of the map. But guys, we know better. You know the truth. And now I want to just say one thing as we conclude too. We want to encourage you, now is not the time to shy away from supporting Israel, standing up for Israel in your communities, and coming to Israel. Guys, it's been 2 years. Israel's borders are open. Now is the time to come to Israel. Yes, you heard Josh got a rock through his window, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's more dangerous here than Chicago. I was in Chicago. Guys, now is the time to come to Israel. If you truly love and support Israel, especially if you're a Bible-believing Christian, Israel needs your support, especially by coming, but at least standing up, supporting from your home community, praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And by the way, guys, serveisrael.com. We have volunteer programs, trip dates, and registration is open. You can go check it out right now. I think we start in August this year, and we go all the way through November. We have tons of trips. It's harvesting grapes, harvesting all kinds of produce, planting trees. We're going to be doing that. Super exciting, life-changing experiences. Check out all the trips at serveisrael.com. And by the way, we have links in the description below where you can support Israel by purchasing products directly. You can purchase wine. You can purchase products from small businesses that'll be shipped right to your door. Check out those links below. It's another great way to support us. Guys, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on any of our content. And let us know what you think down in the comments below. You guys are the kings and queens of commenting. Keep it up. We'd love to see it. We'd love to get involved. I love reading y'all's comments, so get it going down below. Guys, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the heartland of Israel. We'll be back next week here at the Israel Guys.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you like that content. We can get it to you every week right there at your fingertips. If you really liked it and have questions, anything, we love comments. Go ahead and leave us a comment as well. If you'd like to even go further, your support would be greatly appreciated. We've got lots of content, lots of ideas that we want to keep pushing out there. If you want to support, you can go to our Patreon page or check us out at theisraelguys.com.